played Dota 2 for thousands of hours, but you've always wanted something more. A reason to fight, a deeper meaning to your battles. But to know the hidden history of Dota 2, you must go on an adventure of a lifetime. An adventure into the lore!
Hello and welcome back. This is part 2 of our Into the Void video. So if you missed the last episode of LOREGASM, I suggest you hit that one up. And while you're there, you might want to watch the Earthshaker Planetfall video as well, because this one is a biggie, and you might want to have a bit of lore under your belt before we get started. So, here we are. We have talked extensively about the new lore Void Spirit brought, and the answers to all the new questions that may have come with his arrival. But now comes the biggest mystery in Dota 2, one that has been subtly building for over a year. What is next? In the Void Spirit update, a few voice lines were quietly added for some old heroes. The Spirit Brothers all got lines reacting to their brother's return, which doesn't really give us much information. But the real important lines were those added for Void Spirit's personal pupil, the Templar Assassin.
The great Confluence approaches. I must make ready my master's plans. I will serve faithfully in this battle, master. And once the Ancient falls, we will stand ready against the upheaval that lies ahead.
The Great Confluence and the Upheaval. Two new terms that have haunted me for many months. These two words, the confluence and the upheaval, are going to be what we focus on today, to decipher what they could be and what it means for Dota 2's future. Now, before we get into it, we need to do a little bit of house cleaning. I need to teach you about the fundamentals of the Dota 2 universe and timeline. Yeah, it's not a small task, but let's jump right in. First, the Dota 2 timeline. For the sake of not making this a 3-hour-long video, let's just start at the breaking of the Mad Moon. In short, the Dire and the Radiant are trapped by Arc Warden in the Mad Moon. After who knows how long, the two manipulate the rock in the moon enough for it to explode, raining down Dire Stone and Radiant Ore to the planet the moon had been gravitating upon below. This is, for us, the beginning of our Dota 2 timeline. The end of the timeline is your game of Dota 2. This is chronologically the last thing that happens in Dota 2's story. Your game is the climax. However, Artifact adds a bit of spice to this. You see, when one Ancient wins, the loser is nearly dead and the winner is very tired. Arc Warden uses this opportunity where both Ancients are at their weakest to trap them in a moon once again, force them into their moon prison, hurl them into space, and give the universe a little bit of time to recover and breathe until the Ancients rise once again. Or at least that's how it used to happen, until the Ancients hatched their own plan. Now, the Ancients work together to rewind time as soon as one is defeated. They return to the beginning of the battle and play it all out again, which makes sense. They despise each other and want to spend as much time as possible beating the living hell out of each other rather than go back to Moon Prison. This is where the Dota 2 world is right now. Trapped in a time loop much like our boy Dormammu, forever. And thus, Artifact. Some guilds got together and are basically playing a battle simulation in an attempt to find something. What if Legion Commander, at this pivotal moment in her past, lost the Battle of Roseleaf instead of winning it? What if Pudge was taken over by some crazy parasitic chains? What if Ursa wore a cowboy hat? That's the question these guilds are trying to answer, and that's their power, to nudge the past just a little bit to reflect their battle simulation games, and change history to meet those simulations. Perhaps this is the power of the Artifact, which the game itself is named after. But anyway, these guys are changing the lives of heroes and events in the past a little bit in order to suit their needs. That's why in one game you might have Phantom Assassin who took the contract, and in another, she's wearing a cowboy hat. You're simply trapped in a time loop, but one where some people are changing key moments to try to get to some sort of end. So what is that end? What is the goal of these guilds? Well, headcanon alert here, but I believe the goal of the guilds is to do the impossible. To find the one out of possibly 1 trillion results, which would end with a tie. Now in Dota 2, you can't tie. One ancient wins, you literally cannot destroy both the ancients at once. But in Artifact, you can. And when you do, all the towers and both the ancients explode in spectacular fashion. This might be the goal. Manipulate the past and find the one situation where both ancients are defeated at the exact same moment. Neither would have the power to rewind time, and this would finally break the time loop. This is the only way out. The game of Artifact was the true hero of the story. And then y'all decided to stop playing it. Nah, I'm just kidding. So all of this makes sense, right? Sure does. Great. Well, sorry. None of it makes sense anymore, thanks to Dota 2 Underlords. You see, thanks to Underlords, this whole thing is kind of insane. Underlords canonically takes place after Artifact, the Patch 1 artifact, aka where Legion Commander loses the Battle of Roseleaf.
I fought Sorlakan in single combat. You think I'm afraid of you, Axe?
Perhaps you're thinking to yourself, oh, wait, how does that make sense? In a game that takes place after infinite timelines, the entire point of that game is that timelines continue to change and reset. Yes! How does that make sense? Why is Faceless Void and the entity that created light in the universe fighting Faceless Void and a grandma wearing a cowboy hat? In a gang war for a chihuahua-looking rat thing and being paid 5 gold for their trouble? Well, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. But yeah, this is a bit of a problem. You see, to explain how we can have a game that canonically takes place after a game that only exists where it's constantly being rewritten, it can only mean one thing: branching timelines. Oh, good. Would you like to know why modern high-concept sci-fi stays away from time travel, multiverses, and branching timelines? Because it makes everything excruciatingly complicated. The story is hard to explain and change. After all, if they went back in the past once, or if they went to a new reality once, or if they popped into a new timeline once, why don't they just do it again? And which timeline are we currently in? And is this the bounty hunter from the Underlords timeline, the Artifact Core timeline, the original Dota timeline, or is this the timeline where he's wearing a cowboy hat? Well, to those highbrow sci-fi nerds, Dota says eat shit and has all 3. Time travel, alternate dimensions, and now diverging timelines. And, you know, fuck it, 14 planes of existence as well, because why not? Thank you, Dota 2 Underlords. So here we are. The Ancients fall to Earth. The timeline leading up to the fight is manipulated by Artifact. Yet every single time they do this, they now create a branching universe that not only itself is canon, but apparently we have a prime canon diversion, which has led us to your game of Dota 2, but then again rewinds time. Also, if you pay Weaver 5 gold, he'll fight himself to the death. So there you go. That's a basic understanding of what you need to know about the Dota 2 universe as it is right now. So let's talk about the future and get back to our mission. What is the Great Confluence and the Upheaval? Like any internet nerd trying to start an ill-conceived fight and who lacks any creativity, let's start by just reading off the dictionary definition. A confluence is an act or process of merging. But more fascinating, it is a specific term for when rivers meet, when they flow into each other and converge. Now, I think that there's a reason it was called a confluence rather than simply a merging, and that's because Dota 2 does have a river. The Dota 2 map's very famous river is perhaps a little hint here. Perhaps the Great Confluence is exactly what it says, when rivers come together. all the rivers from all these alternate timelines on all of these different Dota 2 maps. What if there is something, an event that always happens, no matter what timeline, what reality you're in, an anchor point that happens in every single timeline, universe, and dimension, connecting them all to a specific moment, a point in time and dimensions where all those different rivers meet. The biggest merger of them all, the Great Confluence. Well, what would that point of time be? What is the anchor? Well, duh, it's the falling of the Ancients. Void Spirit says that he cannot see past the Battle of the Ancients you're currently in.
I have seen everything just beyond this moment, but there soon comes a point where I am blind. I do not worry. I have made every preparation for what I imagine lies ahead.
So there you go. The Great Confluence is the moment where all timelines meet, and that moment is when time is rewinded. Okay, one down, what's the upheaval? Well, dictionary tells us that it's a sudden or violent change to something, but again, it's also a upward displacement of the Earth's crust. Now, if we take this geographical definition literally, we know of a moment where the Earth's crust, indeed its embedded rock, is moved upward. Moved so upward that it gets moved into the sky and becomes a moon. Yes, the upheaval is the moment that Arc Warden rips the Ancients from the planet, which might have some drastic consequences for the planet they leave behind. Much like what we hypothesized about Outworld Devourer's world, a world I presume to be the planet on which Dota 1 took place. So there you go. The confluence is the destruction of the Ancient, and the upheaval is when the Ancients are ripped from the planet and catastrophe begins on the planet. That makes perfect sense, right? Well, sorry, that's not it. You see, Void Spirit has several lines about the confluence that mess this whole thing up. Let's take a listen. When you start the Battle of the Ancients, Void Spirit says this.
The Great Confluence approaches, and my time finally comes.
Cool, that makes sense, but then 15% of the time you get this.
Friend or foe, in the wake of the confluence, you will follow where I lead.
In the wake of the confluence. If time is being rewound, there couldn't be a wake. There is no after to that moment. Now, if you win the game with Void, he says fascinating lines. Check these out.
Victory! The first step has been taken. The Great Confluence is now at hand. Now, the real fight begins. The penultimate fight is won. This was the last of my visions. From here on, I am blind. Celebrate for a few moments, but prepare yourselves for the chaos to come.
The biggest one, of course, is the penultimate fight has been won. Penultimate meaning the second to last. The defeat of the Ancient, that happens before the true final fight. Now, when you lose as Void, he says this.
I was too focused on the conflict to come.
Meaning that it was the fight after this one that he was focusing on, so much so that he lost. But more importantly, he says this.
The Great Confluence approaches, and we are not prepared.
So the Great Confluence approaches after an Ancient falls, which means it can't be the time rewind. It's a battle that happens after the time rewind. It's the true final boss. Void says it himself.
Those who see little think this battle to be the end of things. For some, it may be. For others, the fall of an Ancient signals a fight of a different kind. Something comes, and none alone can stop it.
So yeah, don't get me wrong, this is a really badass concept. Like any RPG, your hero is leveling up through the game, and then when you face the real final boss, your hero is as strong as they could possibly get. Your 5 level 30 teammates are getting ready to beat the universe's big bad. This is super sick, but it's super confusing. You see, the theory that we set up earlier about the confluence being an anchor point in all timelines where all Dota 2 rivers end up meeting, this doesn't really make any sense anymore. Because apparently it doesn't matter which ancient wins. The confluence comes after an ancient falls. Maybe Void Spirit won on the Radiant and Dire wins, or the opposite. He doesn't mention which ancient wins, simply that one has lost. So our great confluence will always happen after the fact. Okay, hold on, wait, you might be saying, this still works. The confluence is the point where time rewinds, and that indeed happens after the fall of either ancient. But you see, Void Spirit canonically has been absent and abstaining from the fight of the ancients, waiting for a specific scenario. Many characters remark on the fact that Void Spirit has not been participating, like Monkey King and Dark Willow.
I've seen Zin and Cowlin. Where's your other brother?
You don't have a fifth brother hiding somewhere too, right? I'd love to know what the four of you were like growing up.
Which means that he was, in fact, choosing not to participate in the Dota 2 rewinds until now. And characters were knowledgeable about him not being there. Maybe they don't know that there is going to be a rewind, but they do know that Void Spirit had not shown up yet. But something now has changed. Void has come to the Battle of the Ancients because the Great Confluence is going to happen now. It's something new. Long have his celestial brothers beckoned, but now he has chosen to reveal himself and join the fight because something has changed. So yeah, it can't be the rewind, because that's happened a bunch of times and he chose not to come. Which means I don't know what the upheaval is, or the confluence. But that's not all. Are you ready to get brain blasted? Because here we go. Check out Void's most intriguing line. He says this when he loses the game.
How will I keep the contamination at bay?
The contamination? Hold up. Contamination? Virus? Rock virus? The old Outworld Devourers being taken over by stones with sentient-like properties who infected his people after the Dota 1 world was destroyed in the wake of the Ancients being ripped out from its crust? Maybe. It makes sense, as it even has a line for Earthshaker, which seems to directly relate to that theory which we made from Planetfall.
I have the answers you seek, Earthshaker. Come to me when the battle is over.
So is our Planetfall theory confirmed? What could this contamination after the fall of the Ancients be? The third Ancient? Alright, so let's just lay this all out. There's a big bad coming in the world of Dota 2. We have known this since day one. Outworld Devourer's entire lore is about this big bad. Earthshaker's Planetfall Arcana is about this, and now Void Spirit's lore is that he has been watching, studying, and preparing for the arrival of this big bad. And he talks about how the fight with this big bad is the real fight, and it happens after the fall of the Ancients. So, who or what is it? Well, we don't know. That's all we got. Something is coming. The word contamination, a upheaval, and the fact that it comes after the canon rewind is meant to happen. And it's finally coming now as Void Spirit has decided to join the fight. So, what is it? And what does it do? We don't know. No more information, but let's make some guesses. Okay, headcanon theory 1. The third Ancient. Now look, I know we've been talking about this since literally LOREGASM episode 1, but I'm telling you people, it adds up. The Ancients are fighting and rewinding time, but with that energy and constant changing of the planet, something is staying through the rewinds, growing, fueled by the conflict, and it's not going back in time, staying constant as it grows from the conflict of the Ancient itself, because it's part of the Ancients themselves. Where Dire is red, Radiant is blue, this third entity is green. Brute strength, cunning intelligence, and green death. My theory is that something is in the planet itself, a power growing, fueled by the rewinds over and over of this battle, creating a nether magic which will end up being the big bad of the series. Perhaps this is what happened to the Dota 1 world we learned about in Planetfall, where time just kept rewinding until this third entity burst forth from a planet's now rotten core and laid waste to everyone. Void Spirit even mocks Arkwarden for not realizing that this battle between the Ancients is not the true conflict, but rather a breeding ground for one.
You thought you understood the true nature of this conflict. Fool.
So that's theory 1. Theory 2, it's just a random new big bad. Spiritbreaker has a dark, foreboding master, and Void apparently knows him.
Will your master show himself, or must I seek him out again?
He also thought that Ancient Apparition, the ghostly visage of a universal big bad, would help him fight this coming nemesis.
I once thought you might aid my cause in a much greater capacity than fodder.
Which is weird. Enemy of my enemy, perhaps? It seems that AA would have bore witness to this big baddie's attack before.
Have you knowledge of events to come, Calder?
Templar Assassin asks the God of War himself if he can sense a coming conflict.
Do you have a sense of the catastrophe to come, Mars?
Which to me says that this will be a massive, encompassing war rather than a small fight. And apparently Faceless Void also might know what's coming, but doesn't care?
You understand the dangers that lie ahead, and yet you stand against me?
Most importantly, however, it would appear that the Ancients will actually die before the Great Confluence comes to pass, as Void Spirit says this to Arc Warden.
Your watch soon comes to an end, Warden.
Arc Warden's watch is, as we covered, to be the warden of these two prisoners. His job is over. Now, if his job is about to be over, it means he no longer needs to guard the Ancients, which means they're both dead. So yeah, perhaps for some reason, this specific fall of the Ancient that Void Spirit has been waiting for is coming, and that will signal this mysterious big bad guy to come and fight. Theory number 3, well, maybe there's just a limit to how many times you can rewind time. Perhaps the act of rewinding is what causes this catastrophic event to happen. Perhaps it's a bit like the lore of the Witcher series, where all of these realities and dimensions have begun to collapse upon each other, this potentially being the upheaval, the chaos that occurs because too much time manipulation has happened, and all these timelines, all these alternate universes, they're crashing into each other in a great confluence, which causes complete chaos and the upheaval of the multiverse. Maybe. Also, I might have stole that one from Anger Mania, so go check out her lore videos if you haven't yet. I can't remember if I stole that or not. But there you go. That's everything we know about the Great Confluence. What exactly is it? Why is it happening specifically now, and how will it affect everything to come is Dota 2's newest mystery. But at least now you have all of the facts. I will say, however, that with all this buildup, this is going to be a payoff I don't think any one of us would expect. Is it going to be a new game mode where we face off against the big bad a la a Siltbreaker or a Dire Tide event? Or will it be a brand new Dota IP which takes place in a world after the Battle of the Ancients? Will we play in what I consider to be the only canon Dota 2 timeline where every single hero that could have a cowboy hat joined forces to make the enemy Yi their last ha? Who knows? But one thing is for certain. Whatever the confluence is, it's gonna be a fight. And after nearly a decade of buildup, that fight is almost here. Okay, hold on. Sick ending, I know, but I want to share a few more neat lore facts from Void Spirit that didn't really fit into this script or the last one. So before you go, stick around, we'll do this quick style, and here's some pretty cool lore. I promise, you'll like it. Did you know anti-mage slaughtered monk brothers were taught by Void Spirit himself, presumably the ways of the Koromite monks?
The Turstar Curry were consumed by their own folly. They let themselves be slaughtered. Your masters misunderstood my teachings, but their folly ends with you.
Now this is a little house cleaning. Apparently I was very wrong in the last video, and it's all because of this key voice line from Elder Titan.
The creator falls like all the rest. Did you think I was one of your creations?
You see, a void is not Elder Titan's creation, aka the Spirit Brothers were not caused by that creation. Then the Shattering must have created Enigma, Wisp, Coddle, and Chaos Knight. So those four, not the four Spirit Brothers. Anger Mania really let me have it on that one, so shout out to her again. Well, I guess that means that the Spirit Brothers were around before even the forces of light and gravity? Yeah, I mean, it's confirmed with this line for Io.
I hardly remember a time before you, Io.
So that's really weird to me. The Void Spirit is older than the universe. I mean, I don't know, me no likey. I liked it when they were haunting a singular planet. Apparently, the Spirit Brothers are some of the most powerful things in the universe. So how is Storm Spirit trapped inside of a fat guy? I don't know, who cares? Did you know that gods are not only real and confirmed, but apparently have relationships with the Spirit Brothers? And hey, that theory that the omniscience is either fake or evil might just be confirmed now.
Your goddess doesn't care to help you, child. Not that she could. The goddess of luck always was a moron. Would you like to know what the omniscience is, purist?
Here's a fun one. Void Spirit trapped Monkey King inside a mountain, not because he was mad at him, but because he wanted him to become the Monkey King that he could use in his great Confluence battle. Interesting.
I serve no gods, Wukong. I merely had later need of you, and this version is much more useful.
Void Spirit has met both Puck and Pugna before. Wonder how that happened.
This does not please me, youngling. I warned you not to interrupt me.
And apparently it is now canon that Rubik is the son of Aghanim, rather than simply a puppet or some strange creation of his. Check this line out.
A great lineage comes to a nullifying end.
Whew! And with that, we finally close the book on the Void. Void Spirit and our future, what's coming next to Dota 2. With that as well, we're pretty much caught up with gigantic lore. While we patiently await for the new lore from future hero releases, arcanas, or Battle Pass cosmetics, it's time for us to go back. We're caught up. Let's re-examine a hero. Comment below what hero you want covered, and I'll get right on it. Thank you again for our patrons, our video editor C-Tech, and we hope we get Kaz back one day. Come back to us, Kaz. And thank you, dear viewer, for taking your time to watch this video. Also, subscribe. I'm very close to beating Purge's subscribers, and it would make me so happy to get one thing over on that piece of garbage. I'm coming for you, Purge. They will subscribe, and I'm coming. See you all soon. Thank you for watching, but be warned and prepare, for the Confluence is coming, and the battle is nearly at hand. For the Lord!